Yes. Now, in this part, we will study about the mechanism of digestion. In the earlier video, you studied about the three associated glands, that was salivary glands, pancreas, and liver. Now, the digestion process occurs from mouth. That means both the mechanical and chemical digestion starts in mouth. So as the food enters the mouth, it is broken into smaller pieces. That's why mouth and buccal cavity both plays a role in ingestion and digestion. Their teeth, tongue and hard palate all helps in mechanical digestion. Now chewing is the first step in the mechanical digestion. Okay, and this helps to produce saliva by salivary glands, and now this salivary gland then helps in chemical digestion. Okay, now the tongue and the teeth both help in digestion. Tongue moves the food in the buccal cavity for crushing under teeth, mixing with saliva and pushing the food during swallowing. Okay, now teeth helps in crushing, grinding, okay, and chewing. Salivary glands, there were three pairs of salivary glands which secreted saliva, okay, into the buccal cavity, which helped in the partial digestion of the starch into maltose. Okay, now in this way the food is softened and the formation of the bolus starts, which then passes to the pharynx. Here you can see while swallowing how this food is going to the esophagus at the back, and the epiglottis then closes the pharynx. So from the buccal cavity now the food passes to the pharynx. So we saw in mouth and buccal cavity both mechanical and chemical digestion occurs, and there is no digestion of protein and fats. Mucus in the saliva softens and lubricates the food, and it helps to hold the food together. Now after it passes to the pharynx, that means food is moistened, crushed and partially digested in buccal cavity, then it enters the pharynx, and from the pharynx it enters the esophagus. Okay, now while entering into the esophagus, the epiglottis closes the tracheal region so that the food cannot enter the trachea part. Now this food is coming to the esophagus towards the stomach. Now here esophagus contains no digestive glands. Okay, however the wall of the esophagus secretes mucus for the lubrication of passing the food. Okay, now in the esophagus the food is pushed towards stomach by the way of, you can see here, alternate contraction and expansion. Okay, and this is known as peristalsis movement. Now this movement occurs along the rest of the alimentary canal, which pushes the food forward. Okay, now this upper esophageal sphincter, okay, it prevents the backflow of the esophageal content to the pharynx, and when the food reaches the entrance of the stomach, then the lower esophageal sphincter relaxes and food enters into the stomach. So remember, esophagus contains no digestive glands, so it only serves as a passage to move partially digested food down to stomach, and there is no digestion occurring in the esophagus. Okay, now stomach. From the esophagus food moves to the stomach. Okay, now through this cardiac sphincter. Okay, now the food is here. Now both mechanical and chemical digestion occurs in the stomach. Okay, the secretion of the gastric glands is called gastric juices, and this wall of the stomach undergoes periodic contraction, means this churning movement is caused by the layer of the muscular wall of the stomach, which helps in breaking the food into smaller particles and mixing it thoroughly with the gastric juices. Now this gastric juices contains HCl, pepsin and mucus. Okay, now all these secretions are collectively called gastric juice. The hydrochloric acid, that is HCl, it creates acidic medium, means it makes the medium acidic, and protein digesting enzyme, that is pepsin, acts in acidic medium, which breaks down protein into peptones. Okay, now this pepsin acts only in acidic medium and is a major enzyme of gastric juice. Okay, now the HCl converts inactive pepsinogen into active pepsin. Okay, that's why this HCl is necessary for the pepsin to be acted upon. Next, it kills germs and bacteria. So HCl creates extremely acidic environment so that all the food gets disinfected. Okay, and it kills germs and the bacteria. Okay, now the mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach from HCl, and it also lubricates the food. Okay, now this from the stomach the chyme leaves stomach for small intestine. Now while the chyme is leaving the stomach for small intestine, here is present a pyloric sphincter. Okay, now this sphincter of the stomach regulates the flow of partially digested food into the small intestine. Okay, now next, in the small intestine there is complete digestion and absorption occurs. Okay, for this it receives the secretion of pancreas, liver and a number of digestive glands. The secretion of all these digestive glands, that are intestinal juices. Okay, they contains mixture of several enzymes which converts protein into amino acid, carbohydrate into glucose and fat into fatty acid and glycerol. That means here the process of digestion is occurring. Now when the partially digested food meets the secretion of all these three, then it breaks down all the food constituent into the smaller substances. Okay, that means all these enzymes act upon different types of the food, and then action of these enzymes causes the conversion of all these. Okay, because all these products are soluble in water and then they are easily absorbed by the wall of the intestine. Okay, now here bile breaks fats into small globules and pancreas secretes pancreatic juice which contains trypsin. Okay, so trypsin is proteolytic enzyme which functions in alkaline medium. Okay, and it is also secreted in form of trypsinogen, which is an inactive form. Now this trypsin acts on protein and breaks down it to peptides, that is the smaller part of protein. Then lipase act on the emulsified fat and then it is broken down into fatty acids and cholesterol. Okay, now from this stomach the acidic chyme enters to the duodenum, that is the first part of the small intestine. Okay, so for this it receives the secretion of all these three, because in the stomach the food was in acidic in nature and in the small intestine it has to be made alkaline before the further digestion occurs. Okay, that means digestion in small intestine begins by conversion of acidic food into alkaline by the secretion of all these from the liver, bile, and then this intestinal juices, and from the pancreas this pancreatic juice helps in the digestion. So small intestine is the site for complete digestion. Now absorption. Now absorption of the digested food occurs in the small intestine. Okay, so all these products are soluble in water, these all, and they are very easily absorbed by the walls of the intestine, which contains this blood capillaries. Okay, now internally the wall of the small intestine is raised into many numerous finger like projections called villi. Okay, these villi greatly increases the absorptive surface area of the inner lining of the intestine. Okay, and then the digested food is absorbed mostly in the region of the villi. Now this villi are richly supplied with the blood capillaries, so that the absorbed digested food is carried by the blood flowing into the blood capillaries to the various body tissues. And now these absorbed food then moves into the bloodstream and reaches where it is utilized. Okay, proteins into amino acid. So this is the complex part and this is the simple part. Maltose into glucose and fat into fatty acid and cholesterol. Then from this whatever the undigested food is there from the small intestine, it goes to the large intestine. Large intestine does not contain any digestive glands, so there is no digestion occurring, but it is responsible to absorb water from the undigested matter to form semi-solid fecal matter for egestion. Okay, so after the water is absorbed from undigested food and when it is converted into fecal matter, then it is ejected out, okay, through anus. Now next, this is the summary of the digestion. Okay, from the mouth, here both chemical and mechanical digestion occurring. Okay, then it passes to the esophagus. Esophagus only passes the food from esophagus to the stomach. There is no digestion occurring. Only it takes food from the mouth to esophagus by peristaltic movement. Then in stomach there were 3 gastric juices we saw: pepsin, HCl and mucus. From the stomach then it moves to small intestine where it receives the secretion of the liver, pancreas through a common duct, okay, formed by the union of the bile duct and the pancreatic duct. The bile duct carries the bile and bile is secreted by liver and stored in gallbladder. Okay, now these all were the intestinal enzyme, okay, which act upon different types of food. And these enzyme causes the conversion of protein into amino acid, then carbohydrate into glucose and fats into fatty acid. Then pancreatic juice has trypsin acted on protein to form peptones, and then lipase act on emulsified fat to fatty acid and cholesterol. Then large intestine, no digestion was occurring, it only absorbed excessive water, and from the undigested matter, that is the fecal matter from the rectum, it is ejected out through the anus. Now this was the summary of the digestion. Kindly note it down in your note copy. Now this is your homework, do it. Okay, now with this we came to an end to the topic, that is nutrition in human being. If you have any problem, write it in the comment section, and in the next video lecture we will deal with the NCERT questions. So kindly do all the assignments. Okay, thank you.